I've already come across my favorite word of all time.
Yeah.
So relatable, so true. Look at that. Alright, I'm gonna try to make more eye contact. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Meg and my channel is Creatively, and I'm really grateful that you are here. First of all, I want to say thank you for how many people watched my last video. I wasn't expecting that many at all. It was way more than my first one, and although it's not an insane amount compared to other channels, but for a second video I was quite shocked, and I was imagining standing in a room with hundreds of people looking at me, and I know it's not exactly that scenario, but I'm just really thankful, and thank you for watching and supporting my channel and what I am getting started on. It means a lot, so thank you. This is a spoiler-free reading vlog, and why am I doing a reading vlog? That is a good question. I think I do plan, depending on how it goes, to occasionally do a reading vlog. At the moment, it might not seem related, but I am a writer and I love procrastinating by reading. Another reason is that books have meant a lot to me this year. Like I said in my last video, I went through a bit of a hard time this year, and books were what kept me going. It was something to sort of obsess over in a mostly healthy way, and I had a lot of fun reading this year, and I wanted to share that joy a little bit. Yeah, what better way to procrastinate on writing than to make a reading vlog instead of a writing vlog. I do plan to make writing vlogs as well, and then I feel like I have so many channels of creativity that I delve into, and I think the more videos I make, the more I will cover those, and it will be more of a scope, whereas now it's like I have a painting video and then a philosophical creative video and then a reading vlog. So they seem non-cohesive at the moment, but I think the more videos I make, the more it will make sense. But this is a taste of what this channel will be about. It might morph a little bit, but for now, this is what we're trying. This is a spoiler-free reading vlog, so don't worry about me giving away too much. To be honest, the book is not something that's easily spoiled, so I will be reading excerpts. Excerpts from throughout the book, but they will be really random sentences and won't give anything important away. I think something I need to warn you about is if I was writing a book report for my 5th grade teacher, I would fail. Looking back at my footage, I don't really talk about something or anything that is what you would see in a review usually. It's more so about the beauty of words and sentences I appreciate and the style of writing, that sort of thing. So it's kind of messy, and I just highlighted what I found intriguing. As you saw in the title, the book I will be reading is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Earlier this year, back in March, I read Susanna Clarke's newer novel, which is Piranesi, and I absolutely devoured this book, loved it, think about it all the time, and when I read any little bits of it, I get excited all over again, and so I would love to reread this soon, but it made me interested in trying out her other books. The thing about that is her most famous one, or her first one, is over 1,000 pages long. So I needed to be mentally ready for that. And I became mentally ready for that, and that's why we're here. So because it's about 1,000 pages, I will be checking in every 100 words, mostly. So what is this book about? I'm very bad at describing plots, but I will try. So we have Mr. Norrell, who is a magician. It takes place in 1806 to 1810s. It takes place during the, this is hard to say, Napoleonic War. And essentially it kind of combines reality and history with fantasy. So it presents as a sort of history in and of itself that England has had magic in the past and it has died off, and magicians have become just theoretical magicians and they study previous written work. Mr. Norrell is, he claims to be the only real magician left. So it follows the process of him trying to bring magic back. We also have Jonathan Strange, who is his pupil, and we watch his story as he becomes a famous magician as well, and as he is in the political sphere and involved in the war, involved in writing, and watching these two characters learn how to work with each other, failing to work with each other. Let's see if there's anything else I missed. Yeah, I think that's basically it. There's a bit of a fairy world as well, which is fun. And yeah, I think that's the plot. Also, I'm pretty sure, maybe it's been a couple weeks, but I found out that Susanna Clarke has published and is releasing or just released a new book, which is very exciting. It's very folksy. I think it's illustrated and might be for a younger audience, and I think it's slightly related to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Yeah, so I'm very fascinated in picking that up in the future. Also, the pronunciation of Mr. Norrell. I start off by saying Norrell, and then I was listening to a podcast where the author was speaking about the book and she was saying Norrell, and so I was like, oh, okay. So I'm trying. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's get started. First things first, I needed to get a hold of the book. I do use the library when I can. I knew I wanted to own this book. I like to buy from World of Books. I don't mind books being a little used, but I was imagining, I like the cover of the book. It's very simple. It's just black background with white writing, big thick paperback, super simple. And I've seen it in stores. Just didn't feel like the right time to buy it. So I go on World of Books and there's like 3 pictures of that at different prices and they're all in the same condition. So I try one. I was a little misled, but it was my fault that I was misled on this one. It looked like a picture of a book, a picture of the item, but it looks like a picture of a hardback. I didn't want the hardback because I've seen it and it's extremely large. But it said in the description that it will be a paperback. So I was like, okay, it's a black background, looks like a hardback, but they say it's a paperback. So it's probably what I'm wanting. It's the cheapest option. It came in and it's literally that was what I saw, was the cover. But I thought that this would be the cover. Like, have you ever seen a book that just has a picture of itself on top? I've never seen a copy of this book look so different from the original. It just cracks me up. But I was like, okay, I'll use this to read, but I do really want a black copy. I know some people might find it silly to be picky about the copy you have. If I really care about the book, I want the specific copy. I have found like a shared library where I have already taken books and I can just put one in, so I'll probably do that. So I tried again. I went back to the website. I picked out one that was black background, said it was paperback. It came in, I pulled it out. I don't know what happened. I don't know how you would just casually read this. Like, can you imagine going on the underground or a bus and just... I mean, this is big too, but like, I'm not gonna try and buy them online again. I want to see for myself. I want to walk into a bookstore, see it with my own eyes, purchase it, know what it is. Almost to the first checkpoint, but can I just say, I've already come across my favorite word of all time. Page 56. Earlier in the year, I read this book. It was pretty fun to read. It was right up my alley. It kind of leans a little Jane Eyre, a little gothic. It's got ghostly elements, old house ruins, Yorkshire, that sort of thing. But there is a chapter. Oh. I wondered where that went. There was a chapter where I came across a new word, and it became my favorite word of the year. I don't normally have a favorite word of the year, but it became my favorite word of the year. And that word is perambulator. And I read it, and I was hoping that the context clues would help me understand what a perambulator was. It seemed to be mobile, and it was to do with a baby. I was imagining like a carriage at first, but I'd never heard of a perambulator. I had to backtrack because I was imagining it all wrong. All wrong. So I had to look back, and I actually had to look it up. I realized that the word pram is short for perambulator. When did that stop happening? When did they stop saying perambulator? I mean, I don't blame them, but like, if I ever have my own perambulator, that's what I'm calling it. And so then, next thing I know, I'm reading this book. I'll just read the sentence. Mr. Norrell was wandering from room to room, wishing only to go away again, when he was stopped in mid-perambulation. Now, if I hadn't run across perambulator earlier in the year, I would have skipped over this word, like skimmed it. I wouldn't even thought twice about it, actually. I would just glaze over it. But no, I honed in on it. I've literally stared at the word. Oh, so perambulation is maybe movement, and then a perambulator helps you to move. The act of walking around surveying land or touring. A perambulator helps you to perambulate. Why does this word sound so funny to me? Again, I just finished the first 10th of the book. My initial thoughts. There's something about really big books that just makes me feel really strong and excited, like I could sink my teeth into them. And there's something about the brick feeling that I really enjoy. Anyway, I respect how Susanna Clarke could write in different tones. This one reads differently from Piranesi. Piranesi reads kind of neutral. It's classy, and the author's very in control of the tone. It's not casual. You can tell she's a good writer. This one, because it takes place in the very early 1800s, it reads like it was written then, which I love. But if something takes place in that time period, I don't enjoy when it's written very modern. But this is very much, feels like I just finished Jane Eyre, and this doesn't feel much different. Yeah, we haven't met Jonathan Strange yet. He was briefly mentioned in a footnote that he is Mr. Norrell's student, but the footnotes are insane. Like, they are, like, most of the page sometimes, like, not all the time. It's very dense, so it's not as easy to read as her other book. I timed it, actually. I know it's probably not a good idea, but I do generally know I'm a slow reader, and I think 20 pages in an average book would take me half an hour. In this book, it took me an hour. And it's because I get distracted and think about other things, stare off into space, pay attention to my washing machine, reread the same sentence over and over again. So it's like that. It doesn't mean I'm not enjoying it though. I kind of do that at the beginning of every book. And I also am slowest at the beginning of a book. Once I kind of understand what's going on, or you get used to the writing, then, and you're hooked into the story, then it's a lot faster by that point. I appreciate very specific sentences that I found, and that is what I look for in a book. Like, when I'm wanting a good book, that's kind of what I mean for myself. Everyone has different things that they're looking for, and one thing that I look for is I want to find lines where I'm like, wow, that has never been, like, I've never heard that written down before, that experience, or how did they put that into words, or like if it's very poetic yet not too abstract, like it's based in reality but it's like written in just a beautiful way, which is hard to do without being cheesy. So it's a very specific thing I'm looking for. There are some interesting spellings which I think are accurate to that time period. So for example, the word choose, choose, is spelt choose, like with an U instead of the double O. Or a sofa was spelled with a PH. And show is spelled like shoe, SHEW. And occasionally I would be like, shoeing. They're gonna shoe someone something, and that doesn't seem right in the context, and then I realize they're showing someone something. And so that's kind of fun. I have a few quotes that I really liked. It's in third person, but occasionally it's like the author is speaking to the reader specifically. Occasionally there will be an I, and I'm assuming that is just the author herself talking to us. It rarely happens, but occasionally. This one's just cute. Like Mrs. Pleasance, I always fancy that misers are old. I cannot tell why this should be, since I am sure that there are as many young misers as old. As to whether or not Mr. Norrell was in fact old, he was the sort of man who had been old at 17. Yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm enjoying the kind of challenge it has. Is also feeding the type of book that I tend to enjoy. I don't always like classics. I kind of need a break from them every once in a while. So this is definitely one of those where after I read one, I'll probably need a break for a little bit. It is a week later and I have made it through the next 100 pages. I finally got my hand on the intended copy. Yes, so now I have quite the collection. I don't know if I can even hold this up. Of the same book. Yeah. Not my finest hour, but finally have it. And these two, like I said, I will give to shared little library. I did already take some from the library, so I'll be paying them back with these as well as a couple other books. So it all works out in the end. Yeah, so 200 pages in. So Jonathan Strange was finally introduced officially. He appeared in about 3 or 4 footnotes before, which I think is a funny way to introduce a character, like just nonchalantly put him in footnotes and not actually in the story first. It's starting to get a lot more magical. I really love Susanna Clarke's brain. It speaks the same language as my brain somehow. It's everything that inspires me. I'm still reading it slowly. It takes me twice as long to read it because of how dense it is. Because it's third person omniscient, it's sort of a wide character range and goes to different stories sometimes, and some stories are more interesting and quicker to get through than others. I still feel like I like Piranesi better, but I'm still really liking this, and I think it's gotten a little bit more spooky and weird and wacky just at the end of this section, and I think I'm really enjoying that. I have made it to page 300. I've actually gone a little past this time. Sorry, I've been a bit sick. While this book is still slower to get through, I feel like it's picking up a bit more. We've reached the end of the first kind of third of the book, like it's divided into 3 books or 3 sections. So we finished that one, which was all about Mr. Norrell, and you start to realize more and more. I feel like at first Mr. Norrell is quite a lovable character. At least it was to me. Maybe if I reread it from the beginning again, I would see it differently. But then you start to see his flaws and how he can be a bit annoying or not be the best person in every way, as anyone is. So realistic. Jonathan Strange is introduced at the very end, and then we start on the second section where it's titled Jonathan Strange. So we learn a bit more about that, and so that's getting exciting. It's coming to parts where I'm just like, this is a masterpiece. Like, this is so good. Like, this is beyond just, it's stately, it's strong. There's a part where after 2 characters meet, they're talking about each other at 2 separate dinners simultaneously. She switches between those 2 dinners, like it felt very cinematic. Like I could just see the shots, I could see the angles, I could see the scene. That was really fun to read, and there's lots of humor throughout. I guess we're doing favorite quotes every 100 words, pages. I mean, this one. Sometimes it seems to me that all of London resembles nothing so much as cold peas porridge, both in color and consistency. And I can feel this, especially in the winter. I can feel that. And then I looked up what cold peas porridge was. I'd never seen it, but apparently I could probably go out and find it somewhere around here. Oh, this one. This I really relate to. It was a day when anyone with something to do indoors stayed indoors to do it, and anyone who was obliged to go outside did so quickly and got back inside again as soon as he could. So relatable, so true. And it was in February too. Like, that's definitely a very February. Definitely a very February feeling. I feel very February right now. I like how she blends reality of the magic
magic history of England versus real England. Here the narrator says, most of us remember hearing of the Shadow House in our schoolrooms. The name conjures up vague notions of magic and ruins, yet few of us have any very clear recollection of why it is so important. Just love how she does that. Here's another favorite. Okay, Richard Chaston lived 1620 to 1695. Chaston wrote that men and fairies both contain within them a faculty of reason and a faculty of magic. In men, reason is strong and magic is weak. With fairies, it is the other way around. Magic comes very naturally to them, but by human standards, they are barely sane. I have a bit of fairy blood. I think that's it. Yeah, so I'll keep reading. And I do apologize. I think I read 200 pages since the last time I checked in, but I am officially halfway through the book, page 503. And I am very proud of getting this far through this book. A lot of what I most recently read, like basically 100 pages almost, it includes a lot of war, and unlike some people who find war very fascinating, I don't. It wasn't like it was very dull. It was just not my favorite part of the story. I'm glad that we are onto another time period of the whole story. There was a description, it sounded exactly like Piranesi, or at least very similar, and that made me very excited. Basically, I just want to read Piranesi all the time. Here says, Ormskirk says it is a road across a wide dark moor, whereas Hickman calls it a vast house with many dark passages and great staircases. Hickman says that within this house there are stone bridges spanning deep chasms and canals of black water flowing between stone walls. To what destination or for what purpose, no one knows. That is very much the setting in Piranesi. And it made me wonder whether Piranesi is in the same universe as this, or if that was just some sort of inspiration she took, like maybe she wrote this down or got this idea to write down and she tucked it away as like a separate idea for a future novel. So that would be interesting to look up. I'm excited to do some research on the author and her books. I also love learning about London as a setting, or even just England in general. There was a point at which a town called Beverley was mentioned in East Yorkshire, a little east of York, and that is the nearest town to where my maiden surname came from. And then here, I was just in Hampstead a few weeks ago, and there's just a paragraph explaining the history of Hampstead and how it was just an unremarkable collection of farmhouses and cottages, and how it was 5 miles north of London, which I just love how cities grow like that, and how long ago this would have been, because Hampstead's very much in London, like it is a part of London. Yeah, it's just so cool to hear about history, both real history and magical history. But yeah, okay. I'll see you in 100 pages. Alright, I have made it to page 600. Not too much more to say. There was a bit
more things that reminded me of Piranesi, and that was very interesting. There was a bit more war going on. Now we are back in England. Yeah, that's pretty much it, if I don't want to spoil anything. To be honest, there's not much to spoil. It's not the kind of book that has any big reveals. It's just what happens along the way. As per usual, I will read a couple quotes that I liked. This one just made me laugh a little. It says, houses, like people, are apt to become rather eccentric if left too much on their own. This house was the architectural equivalent of an old gentleman in a worn dressing gown and torn slippers, who got up and went to bed at all times of day, and who kept up a continual conversation with friends no one else could see. I'm not an old gentleman, but I definitely could have been described as that otherwise, so that's where we're at. So I did the thing again where I read 200 pages instead of 100. I don't really have an excuse. Yeah. So I just kept reading, and I don't know why I'm being so hard on myself for not documenting at the right time when I don't think you guys would even care that much at all. So I'm going to be nice to myself. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so the last time was 600, so I didn't realize how close I was to the third volume of the book, and I feel like it really picks up at this point. It's still not like your fast-paced, high fantasy, like, genre read. There are some interesting things happening. Within, like, between page 600 and 700, there was a part of the story where I went, and I love that. I love it when that happens. Yeah, because I feel like once you get to page 800, you feel like you're really in it. Some characters are extremely annoying. Basically all of them are. It's interesting who you used to root for and now you don't, or you feel like you could still be persuaded to root for them again if the right thing happens. I'm very interested to know how this ends, because apparently there is supposed to be a sequel, but because the author became ill, she wasn't able to write one because it's such a big undertaking. So I don't know if it's going to end on a cliffhanger or if it will be the sort of end that could continue a story but also wraps up this one. We shall see, but I am getting very close. I'm very excited to find out what happens and also to move on to another book. It's not that I'm not enjoying it at all. It's just that it is so big and it takes up so much time. I've been reading this since August and it's October now. It's a huge feat to read, but it's definitely worth reading, especially if you're interested in this kind of thing. I'm reading a lot faster now. I don't have to concentrate as hard. I just want to figure out what happens, and even though it is still really dense, it's a lot faster. And I tend to be like that with books. I'll tend to read them a lot faster in the second half. But I did go to the library for the first time since moving here. And I got 3 books from the library, and they actually have a really good selection. I'm really excited about that. It opens up a whole new world. Also, why are the leaves not turning yet? I mean, I know it's not even halfway through October yet, but I don't remember it taking this long. When we go other places, I do see some trees, but not very many. We've had this tree, has been giving us leaves for 2 months now, but that was because it wasn't getting watered. But the sky, you know? Look at that. I have 100 pages to go. I'm very intrigued to see what happens because it's not the kind of book that has just a long tail end. It's still rising action. It's been a very slow burn. You don't fully know what's going on or what things are leading to, seemingly until the very end, because even though 100 pages is plenty of time for some books to do lots of things in, could be even half a book sometimes, but in this case it feels like a very small section of the book compared to like all of this build up, and then we're still building, and that doesn't seem like much in comparison to figure everything out. So I'm interested to see what we find out and what kind of ending we'll have, if it's a cliffhanger or not. I don't know. Welcome back to my little spot from the beginning of the video. We've come a long way. This video took 3 months to make. That's okay. So, what do I think about the book overall? A little bit of a book review. So if I was going to give it stars, as people do on BookTube, I do give books stars just because I find it fun. I wanted so badly to give it 5 stars, and I think it deserves 5 stars objectively, but from me personally, I would give it maybe 4.5. It's definitely higher than a 4, but it didn't quite make it to a 5 feeling. I think that is simply because of the genre that it is. I don't usually read fantasy. I don't necessarily, surprisingly, I don't necessarily like 1800s books that take place in England, which basically, if I could sum up my personality, I'm like an English person living in the 1800s. So it doesn't really make sense. I don't dislike them, they're just never fully my favorite. And I think because of that component, that's why I didn't give it higher, which isn't fair to the book because I already knew that going in. So that's a very personal thing, but it is a grand, epic book. It's not extremely filled with action, so if you like that kind of thing, you might find it difficult to get through. I think a lot of people would, just because of the length that it is. But I had a lot of fun reading it and documenting that. Yeah, that about sums it up. I wanted to let you know or remind you that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I wish you all the best on your creative projects, and I will see you next time. Bye! And I will see you next time. Bye! And I will see you next time. Bye! Wow. And I will see you next time. Bye! 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 And I will see you next time. Bye! You get the idea. Yeah, bye.